I'm Sergeant Ann Justice with the Phoenix Police Department. That's JUSTUS. And I'm here to talk about an update reference the shooting at Cesar Chavez High School yesterday. Today, around 11 a.m., the Phoenix Police Department made an arrest in this case. We arrested a 15-year-old male student from Cesar Chavez High School. What we learned throughout the course of this investigation is yesterday at about 3 p.m., a 16-year-old male was shot in the bathroom at Cesar Chavez High School after an altercation. Through interviews and other means, our detectives learned that 16-year-old brought a gun to school with the purpose of selling it to the 15-year-old. That transaction took place in the bathroom of the high school. A sum of money was exchanged. The gun was given to the 15-year-old, and the 16-year-old soon realized that the money he received from that gun was not real money. It was money that is used in the making of motion pictures. So it looks kind of similar to real bills, but when you look at it, it says for motion picture use only. As soon as the 16-year-old realized that the money he received was not real, he confronted the 15-year-old. That's when the altercation occurred, and the 16-year-old was shot. Investigators have made that arrest. Charges are pending for the 16-year-old once he recovers from the shooting. The 15-year-old is going to be booked into the Juvenile Court Center for charges including endangerment, aggravated assault, weapons violations, including having a gun on school campus, as well as other charges. This was great work done by the Phoenix Police Department. There was collaboration between patrol officers, SROs, net officers, and surveillance officers. At this time, like I said, the investigation is still ongoing. The gun that was sold is a poly-type gun, often referred to as a ghost gun. It is a gun that people can build. They can order the parts off the internet. There's different ways they can obtain those. So far, does anybody have any questions?
Do we know anything about how he was able to get that gun on campus? We understand there are metal detectors there. Is there any part of the investigation that tells us how he got it on there without it being noticed?
So the question was, how did the 16-year-old bring the gun onto the campus without it being noticed, and whether there's metal detectors? It is my understanding there are no metal detectors at that school at this time. So your guess would be as good as mine as to how he got it on campus.
You know, what follow-up investigation is going to be done into how a 16-year-old was able to obtain, build a ghost gun in the first place?
So the question is, what kind of follow-up investigation is going to be done into how that 16-year-old was able to build that that weapon? Our investigators are attempting to talk to people involved. They're trying to determine how he got the parts to build that gun, and that's just going to be part of the ongoing investigation, conducting interviews, doing search warrants, and things like that.
Were those boys the only two in the bathroom at the time of the exchange and shooting?
The question was, were those two boys the only two in the bathroom at the time of the shooting and the exchange? I don't believe so. I believe there were witnesses inside the bathroom. Go ahead.
Do we have any indication of what this juvenile intended to do with the gun after he bought it?
So the question was, do we know what the 15-year-old was going to do with the gun after we bought it? We don't know, but of course that's very concerning to us. Anytime juveniles are attempting to obtain, possess, or sell weapons, that's something that we need to look into.
Did the 15-year-old surrender, or did officers ferret him out?
The question was, did the 15-year-old surrender? He did not. Our detectives did a lot of background investigation. They located where that 15-year-old was, and they were able to take him into custody without any use of force or anything like that.
Where was he located? At his house? Somewhere else?
The question was, where was he located? I don't know if it's at his house, but he was located at a residence near the school. I believe is where he's staying.
And he was an active student?
The question was whether or not he was an active student. The 15-year-old, in this case, both boys were active students at Cesar Chavez High School.
Does it look like the shooting was intentional after that transaction? Is there any chance it could have been an accident or anything, or was it intentional once he was confronted about the big money?
So the question was whether or not the shooting was accidental or intentional. We don't know at this point. You know, that there was an altercation, and as a result of the altercation, the shooting occurred.
Do either of the kids have a record?
So the question was, do any of the kids have a record? I'm not aware.
People are going to see this and say, kids selling guns in the bathroom. Is it gang-related? And then how targeted will Phoenix PD be in rooting out potential gang activity in the area?
So So the question was whether or not this was gang related, and then how diligent we will be in rooting out gang activity in the area. Right now, we don't have any indication to tell us whether or not this was gang related. We will follow the evidence where it leads us in this investigation.
Now, we have talked about school resource officers. We know the school district stopped having them last year, and I, of course, have that question for the district about if this changes any of their plan. But without having school resource officers contracted, does Phoenix Police, in a case like this, now have the ability to go there with your own presence despite that? And will there be a presence where police officers are involved outside of a normal SRO contract? Does that make sense?
So we won't force an SRO program or officers on anybody.
But I mean, will you have more officers there? As I'm assuming there's still more to investigate on here. Is this going to be police presence there for a while? Is it?
Sure. So what I can tell you is I've been advised by the school district that they have hired some off-duty officers for presence on their campus. And our detectives will, of course, yes, be following up on campus, asking questions, and doing everything they need to get to the bottom of this investigation.
Quick clarifier. So basically, the 15-year-old gives the 16-year-old this fake cash. 16-year-old looks at it closely, says, well, this is, monopoly money, essentially, and gets angry, and then tries to confront the 15-year-old, and that's when the 15-year-old, having already obtained the gun, decided to shoot him. Maybe in an act of, I don't want to say self-defense in this case, but was there a confrontation after the fake money was realized?
So
safe to say that's what led up to it.
The question was kind of long, but in summary, I understand it to be: was there an altercation prior to the shooting that led up to it? Yes, the 16-year-old approached the 15-year-old after he realized the money was no good, and he confronted that subject. That's what began the altercation. We don't know whether or not, this person intended on shooting him, or if it was as a result of that altercation.
And then what do your officers believe happened after the shooting? Did the 15-year-old and the other witnesses blend in with the, chaos, so to speak, and just head home, walk off campus?
So the question was, what do we think happened afterwards? We know that the shooter fled the scene immediately after the shooting. We've reviewed surveillance footage, we've seen that, and witness statements as well.
Did he have the gun with him when detectives caught up with him?
So the question was, did he have the gun? No. At this point, the gun is still outstanding. We have not been able to locate that firearm.
How did you find out it was a ghost gun then?
Yes, it's a Poly 80 is I think what it's called.
Okay, but did one of the kids tell you that?
Yes, the 16-year-old who was shot told us that.
And what is he being charged with?
So the 16-year-old hasn't been charged yet. Once he's out of the hospital, he faces charges involving weapons violations.
Tell us a little bit about ghost guns. Are they made of plastic? Can the materials vary? Is it like the regular metal that you would use with a gun? I mean, what kind of materials are they made of?
So the question is, what kind of materials are ghost guns or polyguns made out of? I don't have the answer for that. I can follow up and get back to you on that.
Just so I'm clear, once the transaction happened, did they go to the bathroom, then come back, or did everything happen then?
So it's my understanding that after the transaction occurred, the 15-year-old began to leave with the weapon when the 16-year-old followed him, and I believe the shooting happened right outside of the bathroom.
What worries you most about a situation like this?
It's a great question. So what worries us most? Kids having guns, right? Kids having guns on school campuses. This is really what worries us. This is something that the Phoenix Police Department takes very seriously. When we have our kids bring guns to somewhere where they are supposed to be in a safe learning environment, that's troublesome to everybody.
What's your message to parents of this school?
So my message to parents is know what your kids are doing. Know who their friends are. Know what they have in their backpacks. Check their backpacks. Talk to your kids and make sure they're comfortable talking to you as well. And make sure they understand that guns have no place in their hands.
When you say ghost gun, do you mean 3D printed? Is that what a ghost gun does?
So
Is it 3D printed?
it's my understanding that the question was, are ghost guns 3D printed? I don't know if that's one way you can make them. It's my understanding they're kind of kit-based guns.
Condition, what kind of condition is the teen in?
So the question is, what kind of condition is the 16-year-old in? It's my understanding that he is still in serious condition. He is expected to recover, and he is still in the hospital.
Of the significance of today, no backpacks. Can you talk about that? Is that the school thing?
Yeah, so the question was what the significance of the school not allowing backpacks on campus. That's a great question for the school district.
At the end, where's the investigation go from here? How much bigger will this get?
So again, we'll follow the evidence where it leads us. We're going to continue to do interviews. If we can find out, who helped him purchase the parts to make this gun, if that's the case, if any other guns have been made and sold on campus, this investigation is going to go exactly where the evidence leads us.
And it's safe to say the 16-year-old had this gun in his backpack all day.
So the question was whether or not the 16-year-old had the gun in his backpack all day. That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that.
Will you be releasing their names as they've been charged at this point?
So the question was, will we be releasing their names? The Phoenix Police Department does not release the name of juvenile suspects that are booked into juvenile court center.
Is this ghost gun situation anything that you guys have been seeing around the city?
Yeah, so we have an entire squad that is the crime gun intelligence squad. They're aware of these ghost guns, and they are doing what they can to combat the problem.
But has it become more of a problem in recent years or months even?
So I would have to talk to them to see if it's been months. I know in the recent years we have seen an increase in their presence. So.
And will you guys make any sort of recommendation to MCAO when it comes to whether or not to charge these teens as adults, or is that all them in a vacuum?
So the question was whether or not we make any recommendation to charge juveniles as adult. We don't. That is the sole discretion of the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. Okay. If I get any more information, I'll be sharing it. I don't expect to send out an additional update other than what's been covered today in this conference.
Do we know, do you have a type of gun what this might have been, even though it's a ghost gun? Was it a handgun?
I believe it was a Poly 80. I'm sorry? A Glock style Poly 80. So, and excuse me, because I'm not really familiar with the ghost guns.
Outside of these two teens, when you went and arrested the 15-year-old at a house this morning, I'm assuming a search was done of the residence to see if the gun turned up. Has anyone else been arrested during the course of this investigation?
So the question was, has anyone else been arrested during the course of this investigation? And I'm assuming you're asking about family members or anybody else that could be involved. At this time, no other arrests have been made. But that's certainly not out of the question if the evidence leads us that way. So, again, I will push out a media advisory kind of recapping what we went over today, and if I get any additional information, I will share it. Thank you.